Go ahead and make this. I was getting clarity or something. Shout out. Like, I think a lot of people don't get their flowers why we can give it to them now. But I always reference this sister, Love Dorsey. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, I'll return. Okay. Yo. So, I made a video previously talking about the root chakra, which really, when you think about the basic needs of people, like literally the basic needs, like food, shelter, protection, simple things, like you can research this. Bro, this shit just hit me in this full moon energy, because I don't know when I'm gonna actually share this or post this, bro. Like, I just reference Love Dorsey, bro, because she be hitting me with some shit, especially when it pertains to men. And a lot of shit I started to realize, like, it ain't even my fault, but it's still the fact of how to take accountability, even after the fact of, like, you can't even ignore the simplest shit about, like, awareness around the fact of how you didn't even receive basic fucking needs, basic instructions on even how to navigate this world. Like, this shit, I'm laughing and kikiing about it right now, but I probably cry a little bit later off camera, simply because this shit is real. When you think about, damn, come on. Appreciate it. When you think about the simple things, like, again, the necessities growing up, where you were supposed to get young, bro, I'm gonna be real and raw. I'm just now learning the simplest motherfucking things at 30-something. Not ashamed, don't feel guilty. Because when you think about the depths of foundations of why a lot of people loop through traumas, why they experience similar patterns, why they go through the same shit, bro, they don't get the base. They don't get the basic necessities. And so when you think about the systems and structures in place, notice that it's based off that. Finances, child care, a whole bunch of other shit. And most people will never question and think that this doesn't have nothing to do with basic needs or necessities. But really, a lot of that reflects the internal aspect of being self-sufficient. So when she referenced Love Dorsey, referenced talking about the basic needs, like before you enter a relationship with a woman and stuff, like, knowing how to clothe yourself, knowing how to feed yourself, knowing how to, build on things yourself. Basically self-sufficiency. Have your own as a man, a whole bunch of other shit. Bro, you know how that shit hit me? Like a ton of bricks. Because the reason why I see how a lot of being a cycle breaker, generational curse breaker, why a lot of, when you think about what's plaguing your generation ancestrally, why a lot of shit doesn't want you to break that cycle, specifically as men, especially, is to keep you from anything to keep you from facing who you are internally, which is connected to your interdependence. Anything to keep you away from really facing yourself emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and all that, because all of that is going to do is to encourage you to be what? Self-sufficient, self-care, self-love, focusing on yourself. But if you haven't got the simple fucking basic needs, when you think about the shit that you grew up in, you cannot tell me that's naturally not going to create cycles of what? Fucking codependency. And I can tell you from experience, that's exactly what it created. That's exactly what that shit created. Because familiarity will have your ass cycling and going back to what's familiar. You think you're going forward, but you can't seem to get past the basic shit, doing the basic things. And I was like, what the fuck? Literally, aha moment, clarity, revelation, and it's a full moon. So that's something to celebrate, but also something to let go of. Like, to realize, like, a lot of us never had. When you see some of these men, and when you see some of the patterns, and then you see some of the women that they connect with, it's all a mere reflection of a lot of us ain't had no fucking basic needs, bro. A lot of our needs were never fucking met. The simplest things as a child, when you have emotional abandonment wounds, you will be naturally codependent to someone who's probably who's emotionally unavailable or feeding your ego. There's numerous of things. There's numerous of shit when you think about healing, because healing ain't just forward, it's backwards. So a lot of this shit I realize is much more bigger than me. It's about me, but it's bigger than me. I'm sitting here, bro, like that's something I had to address within myself. I'm like, yo, when I see the pattern of my mom, as I've told y'all about, a lot of people, even when they try to pretend, they can come into the most money, they can have a lot of shit and so forth, but something along down the lines, being that they never received the basic needs and necessities of something in their life, they'll either return to what's familiar, or eventually the cycles of instability, emotional insecurity, or being inbound or unstable, something to catch up eventually that wasn't addressed or resolved. The shadows they never faced within themselves, their fears and so forth. That shit was real as fuck. I was like, man, what the fuck? That shit fucking blew my fucking mind. When she was just simply talking about, like, and I mean, I couldn't ignore it because I knew it was me. It was me when I think about the patterns of I'm not even seeing men, like, just, especially when you grow up in a single parent home, and it pertains to a mother. You know, a lot of things, again, how vital it is for a young boy to grow up with healthy women. Because his way of showing up eventually is only going to prepare him to do what? He's not going to want to have stability for himself. I'm going to be fucking real. He's going to want it. But if he's not willing to have the courage and to dig within himself to really find out what it is to be stable, to be around other people who reflect that, to be in the presence of people and men who encourage that, who challenges him to stand in his power, you know, basically that imbalance being restored to bring balance. That's how vital it is to see why certain men, young men anyway, go down the path that they take. It makes so much fucking sense, bro. It's wild because to whom is given, much is required, because you have like a responsibility now to all of this shit. So, and it's wild, like I walk past like 5 young men, and it's like you can just see yourself and so forth, because like it's wild, bro. This shit wild. It's not talked about enough, because it's amazing to hear from Love Dorsey, but to come from a man, it's like I share this shit so y'all can realize what type of cycles we're breaking, what type of patterns that we need to change about ourselves, and shit that we need to see about ourselves. I can't make you. I can lead the horse to the, what they say, you can lead the horse to the well, but you can't make him fucking drink. But I feel like it's very vital to hear it from a man from the experience. Being that I never had the basic needs, I really didn't even know how to fucking build something for myself. And it ain't even the fact of being, I know you hear me use the term late bloomer, but it's the fact that I'm just now processing this shit, bro. I almost want to cry about this shit. Ain't even, and we'll laugh about this shit, but deep down I can see a lot of men who really suffer from this shit. They suffer from it. Then when you think about hustle culture and all that other bullshit, all of that shit ain't nothing but a form of not even having basic needs. emotional security, emotional balance, having to navigate life. And I'm grateful that I'm doing it now because I realized, like, when I think about this was so vital. When I think about the women in the matriarchy and what they represent, I see why they were never supportive, because they were so wounded. So their way or their inability to be emotionally stable, that's like a way of like, I want to keep you around even through your ignorance, or even through, it's like they want to keep the dysfunction going. I want to keep you around as a man, from a little boy to a man, because I really don't want to be alone. And you see that shit a lot. That's why a lot of women smother their sons, and grandmothers do the same thing. I've seen certain things within people in my family. It'll be okay. But this is how I really knew I was a generational curse breaker or a cycle breaker. It's because my grandma never told me that it was something she seen in me. And I always knew this. It's like, I feel like people be knowing in your family what you're gonna do or what you're here to do. But even sometimes in their not knowing, the divine will reveal to you, like in their resistance to you to support what you're doing, is their way of reminding you, or the divine reminding you, to step into your purpose, to walk into your power, to step into your power, to do something that someone's never did, and stay persistent and consistent. And so, again, it made sense to me why most of the women in my family was not supportive. I had to go the other way. Was not supportive because a lot of it either mirrored, again, when you think about basic needs and necessities, their father wound was a part of why, in the image that they saw men through. So unconsciously or subconsciously, that programming prevented them from really wanting to support. So in their ability not to support, what it really is saying is that it reflects their internal world. It reflects their way of really wanting to support you. Or it'll be to an extent, and this can happen both ways when it comes to men and women. Some women too, is again, they'll try to stunt some women will, it happens to y'all, like men will try to stunt your growth, or they don't want you to outgrow because of their own selfishness or unhealthy attachment because of a mother wound. So again, like, it's like I'm getting so much clarity and awareness around the fact of why what I went through in my childhood and in my experiences, why certain people wouldn't be of support and still aren't. And it just like, I don't clock that shit already. I don't even look for it. I just realized that it's gonna come with some bullshit. It's gonna come with some breadcrumbing. It's gonna come with, well, why you ain't doing this? Well, why won't you go get this? Why won't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why the fuck why are you questioning me? Isn't this what we supposed to do? Support each other? And so diving deeper into that, when you're dealing with young men who don't have basic needs, most of the time, like I just saw those 5 boys walking by, that's their family to them, because they can relate some way. And most of the time, they trauma bonding. Because I hear one of them when I walk by talking junk to the other one. And the trauma bond consists of what? Fighting. Because they don't have compassion for each other. Because guess what? Most of the time, if their father is not there, or a man's not there, and they don't see a man who walks in integrity, walks upright, be authentic, see that masculinity displayed in a healthy way, then guess what? And it ain't just gender when I say masculinity. I mean, like, see it displayed from, let's say, a man who is emotionally in tune, or a man that's in tune, and so forth. So seeing that healthy dynamic between their mom and the man. So most of them, again, what happens is, when we don't get those basic needs, we're automatically thrown in a position of being responsible early, being the man of the house. So you gotta realize a lot of our basic needs have been looked, and now now we're asked to recover. And that's what a lot of us is doing as men. In the healing state, that's what my healing state has revealed to me, is how much of my basic needs were never met. And I had to apologize to myself, and I apologize to those women that, you know, the shit that I went through and put them through had nothing to do with them. And all honesty, had everything to do with the fact of it wasn't so much of being fucked up. It's just the foundations that I had that were fucked up, that did not give us or grant me those basic needs and necessities that a child needed, simply. You know, the simplest things, nurturance, and so forth. Dealing with men such as myself when I was growing up, God, I'm breaks. With abandonment wounds and stuff like that, how the fuck would I know how to nurture myself or even nurture a woman or to even know what it is to be nurtured healthily? I don't know. I wouldn't know. So moving forward on that, that's what we are dealing with. That's what we're healing. That's what we're uncovering. That's what's being revealed. That's what's been happening and plaguing so many people. You're dealing with people mentally who didn't have a balanced life. So all they know how to do is to create more of imbalance for themselves and other people. That's what the fuck I did. I ain't even gonna hold you. I had to apologize to myself. The more and more I stay with myself and learn more about myself, everything starts to open up. Everything starts to be revealed. Not just about me. As on my previous video, I was talking about the fact of, no, before I jump into that, because I just saw a vehicle that reminded me of someone. That was what I was about to get into when it comes to men. When you go through that hustle culture and trauma bond and shit, I'm gonna show you how vital this is to have the basic needs growing up. When you have people in your corner, behind your back, and if the mother is the first teacher, you know, if she didn't have a support system, then subconsciously, she's gonna, the little boy is gonna receive that, whether a child or whatever, emotional needs and so forth. Now, how we would show up for a little boy is like, okay, this is why you see a lot of men, young men, that whole acting tough, that shit is an act. All that acting tough and trying to portray themselves as tough and all like that just shows, so that whole tough guy thing, as I was saying, it's just a facade. It's just a false identity around what it is to be emasculated. So think about that. Being tough is just like to portray something is just another form of how you were emasculated young, because when you are encouraged to be in your power and to show your emotions, you don't feel shame and guilt around how to express it. So if you don't know how to express it around other people, especially men, was that chair in here a minute ago? Or am I tripping? Okay. So, and that's what you see a lot of young men do. And that has a lot to do with they don't know how to control their emotion. They don't know how, or no one would ever taught them. Y'all gotta realize this shit so good, bro. I'm so honored. I gotta But I'm so honored, man, that I'm able to share this with y'all. One moment. Okay, yeah, so I had to use the bathroom. Do I want to go downstairs or what? So yeah, a lot of that tough, you know, that tough, impulsive, like I gotta show my macho man and all like this, no matter who I am and so forth. That is such a false identity or false empowerment of what actually the divine masculine actually embodies. And the reason being is because we've been taught that a man has to show or be macho and do all these other things. But again, a lot of that shit is such a facade, because I realized how hypersensitive I was because of the women I was around. But then I start to realize how naturally sensitive I am. And that's not a horrible thing. I'm supposed to express my emotions. I'm supposed to be that because I developed my emotional resonance from a woman. But being that the basic needs where, again, a lot of men don't have the sense of what it is to be emotionally secure, and they've been around women or they've been in environments where emotions are a form of being weak or downplayed, then what ends up happening is that they push them down. So then they go out around other young men and men, even in workspaces and so forth. You got to realize this shit progresses. They repress and suppress the emotions even more and develop an identity around it and keep moving forward through it. That's how they do. It doesn't matter who they are. They just continue to do it. And I've seen it because it's just like, as you start to become more in tune, you start to see the shit clearly. You're like, oh, you just acting tough. You just doing this because of what? Your status, your career, the money you have, all those different things. And so, again, going back to even the child thing, when you don't have the basic needs, basically all of those things that were not so much displaced, but we're not given young, it literally plays out into adulthood, where most people have repressed and suppressed shit so much to where they forget the steps of life. All people have done is forgot the most important thing about all of this is that it doesn't matter how much of an adult you want to be. Your childhood came before all of that. Your childhood came before all of that. And that's the thing that I realized, like, through all of this. I realized in healing my inner child, I could never, not never, but I will never obtain what I am and coming into, if I choose to continue to move forward without acknowledging my inner child, which is my childhood, which is a part of who I am. Everywhere I go, the little boy goes with me. So I realized a part of the relationships were mirroring back the basic needs either I was clinging on to in an unhealthy way, or that I realized that it was giving me, whether that being shelter. If you think about the relationships of codependency, the mother wound, the fear of being on my own, the fear of stepping into my independence, these relationships with young men depending on the single parenthood or a father not being there, this reflects an internal thing overall. And again, it still can play out even with men with money. It still can play out because a lot of their codependency can be dependent or it can be related to the fear of being alone. So they could have grew up with money and all this other stuff, but they really never step into that fulfilling their purpose because they saw a mother and father who stayed together, but no one never really fulfilled and become stable on their own. So that's a whole nother different thing to where, again, you can have people together, but they can be together for so long unhealthily because of their needs that were never met young. So a lot of things could be through unhealthy attachments until some of you come into that realization like, oh, my mom and dad stayed for the kids, or they stayed for, this and that. But when you look at the depths of it, it's something more deeper. That doesn't mean that they were stable emotionally. That doesn't mean that they were stable in other ways and they never talk about it. Because we know of a lot of people who had families who fathers stepped out, or eventually you hear a lot of stories how they stayed so long to where, again, they didn't, for men, one thing I've learned personally, in being emotionally abandoned young, I realized that was a delayed, prolonged grief around situations that I did not process very young, or even in relationships to where I'm just now processing it. And that's a part of realizing that where that prolonged grief or the delayed grief or processing things later, you come into this awareness like, oh shit, I'm not happy in this because I put my happiness my happiness was dependent on something external or someone else. But had I had basic needs to know that my emotions stem from me first and come from me first, then I wouldn't be out here looking for that validation, that acceptance, that so forth. I first need to bring it, I'll see and experience it, but bring it back to myself. If that's one thing that I learned about life now, that's been the biggest thing. Is learning to, at this age that I am, and it ain't even just age, it's really the evolution of the spirit or the soul, or whatever you want to call it. It's just now with that, it's the responsibility. Because this is rewarding. Because now there's still a responsibility that comes with this. The responsibility of sharing the message, being the messenger. Then also taking my own fucking advice and living up to that. To whom is given, much is required. So with that, again, in this unveiling of a lot of things in these moments where the veil is thin, like I realize now I'm able to see my father, the men after that, and so forth. Like, again, from my experience, I see the cycle that I've broken. I've seen the curse that's been lifted. And then again, if you've been watching, it's again the basic needs of a lot of things. Again, when it comes to shelter, and when you see this collectively, it's so much sitting around. That's why I realized there isn't a lot of support around men's mental health. So men being supported emotionally, support around that. And this is what people don't realize, like, it mirrors the basic needs a lot of mothers didn't receive. And because they've been codependent on external things or things that were given to them to make them believe this is preparing you for all of your needs are going to be met. But then when you have systems that have manipulated them, convinced them that, if you go this route, if you do this, then everything's going to be all right. But there's an emotional side to that. There's a spiritual side to that. There's a mental side to that. There's a lot of things to all of those, approaches or things that are being offered. Because a lot of things that have been offered from a system built upon narcissism, preying on our childhood wounds, then when you look at what is the basic needs or economic needs, or when you look at humanity, it has a lot to do with, for one, the well-being has to be a priority for a people. Most importantly, the mothers who are nurturing the children, and also how in her nurturing that supports the reciprocity that she gives, whether she has children or not, to her spouse, partner, or whomever. And when you think about the matriarchal and what have been experienced, that has not been a fucking necessity. So we are what y'all call a product of the environment. It's fuck all that shit. It has a lot to do with the fact of it's simple as basic needs not being met. Simple. The simplest shit. And when these things are not met, you can't think that there aren't people that are in place that actually make sure that this shit happens the way it does. And now that it's been exposed and collapsing, this is the greatest wealth transfer. Because again, I had to really see that to hear from a woman, it's almost like that mirror of like, whoa, hey, this is why your life is the way it is. And some of it is not about it being someone's fault. It's about taking accountability now and realizing like, wow, I can say, hey, sister or whomever else, I realize this is codependent because I was dependent on you for the basic needs that my mother never gave me, or the women in my family that never supported. So I see why I had to move away. I see why now that I vicariously lived out my trauma through you. I apologize. It's fucked up it may sound, but you want honesty, right? There you are.
And it's wild because it's like a closing out of a cycle and closing out of a chapter, because it just makes so much sense when I really look at a lot of what people are working and busting their ass towards. If they only knew that they're so caught up in the financial aspect, is that they don't realize the spiritual aspect that's been restored now to bring awareness to. This is what I'm here to do. It's like the awareness around your emotional, your mental, your spiritual well-being is connected to that which you call finances, the surface things, the material things. But the world has convinced you, and convinced, especially through just everything being turned upside down on this hand, the disposition of people working and women doing this and so many different things, to where it created so much of an imbalance individually for people, then collectively, to now you desperately see people hanging on to what it is to be normal. And then they've had to mask themselves because they never were encouraged to prioritize their well-being, and how that plays a major part and vital role in how their life is to prosper or to blossom. So when you think about how certain shit was preyed on, certain, people put into place, certain demographics, all these different things, systems that have been in place, it was strategic. And now that it's been exposed and everything has been unraveled, I'm telling you, like, even in these moments, that's why it's so important to have peace, to even find laughter, to find a sense of joy. I can laugh. That's why I laughed a minute ago in the video at the same moment, because it's really like, it's so fucking clever. At the same moment, it's like, now this awareness brings accountability to where now I have to counter that which I felt was a curse, or that which I felt like I couldn't return or come back from. No, this is the beginning of the end, because I'm able to acknowledge this shit and say, hey, my confessions to myself, because I ain't trying to convince nobody that I didn't have basic needs. When I look at the woman and the women and the men in my family, when I see how they operate, when I see the dysfunction of the family structure and shit like that, they never had, their needs were never met, their basic needs and necessities. And when you see, of course, like when it comes to a certain people being targeted, and when it comes to them economically being targeted, and then even the people who just assume that they're in a better position and not see the bigger picture, and not realizing like how karma plays out, how universal law, the seeds that you've sown to keep people from progressing. And at the time where I tell y'all all the time, I reference the first shall be last, and now the last is being made first, and divine retribution of people being in position that other people were, and their greatest fear is for people to do to them what was done to them what was done to them to whomever they projected or inflicted whatever it is, or to make sure that this person or individual didn't progress. And that happens in family dynamics, and that's why sometimes y'all don't realize a lot of people don't live in their fucking purpose. They don't. They live in programming. And and that's why I started to realize a lot of this shit is programming. And now that we're upgrading individually and the collective is upgrading, it's going to expose the viruses, the things that have been keeping this shit from actually upgrading. And as we integrate this shit, you start to realize like, oh, there's nothing I can do about them. They are part of the virus. They are part of what's been cleansed. At the same moment, as you upgrade your life, you start to realize like you've been living in programming and dysfunction and so forth. And this is what's keeping shit from not being balanced and your life not being stable. So my awareness is only to realize, to get the clarity and the insight of knowing what I've already been coming into. That's all, because that's the thing I be telling you about being a cycle breaker and a generational curse breaker. It's shit that's going to be revealed to you in divine timing. But it ain't just for you. It's now for you to realize, like, at a point in time, you couldn't see the forest from the trees. And a lot of people, due to their programming, can only see the fucking tree, can only see what is right there in front of them, and they just accept just that instead of the bigger picture. Because once you think about your needs being met, and a lot of people, and this is where you're seeing the last being made first, is because there were people, like I told y'all before, who built communities, who built this, who did this intentionally so that their needs can be met, so their basic needs can be met. And they actually think that that was okay and normal. That's an abuse of power, bitch. We live in an abundant society. There's an abundance of everything. What the fuck makes you think that the monetary system is okay? All this shit is okay. This person get this plot of land. This person is entitled to this. This and this and this. And that goes for everybody on all fucking levels. Leadership. And everywhere. You are not exempt from the message. You are not exempt. Because a lot of y'all, in y'all ignorance, you think that you're set, like, oh, I'm going to make sure their basic needs are met. Then I'm going to just give them the slop and slums and shit. That's why it's beyond fucking color. There's people of all colors and creeds that have their hand in this wicked ass shit. And now that their hand has been exposed, because now the divine can see your shadow. Because a lot of you just wanted to operate in the light and come off as, and that goes for people too. Like, y'all don't realize, like, when you think about the fact of how it's so fucking funny, but it ain't, it's smart, but it ain't clever. Once you start to see shit and be like, oh, y'all love to come out and want to give to people. But how the fuck are you actually making sure their needs are met? Basic needs is like you breadcrumb them. Y'all don't think the divine's been keeping receipts? This is why a lot of us are coming into this awareness. Some of you are new leaders of the new order of shit. Because you had to be able to recognize and see those who operating in the light, but then they're one thing in the shadows. Meaning, like, they'll come off like, oh, I want to give, I want to offer people all of this and all these different things. And, oh, look at me, everybody. I'm the nicest. Hey, I contribute this, give $1 million and, $100 to the da-da-da-da-da. That shit means nothing, because those with the first eye know exactly what the fuck that is. I know who the fuck all you is in the shadows. Those who know who in tune, even people who in the spiritual community. Y'all do the same fucking shit. Y'all make sure the powers that used to be, especially, you will make sure, because think about it, it ain't just the physical fucking needs. This is a spiritual thing first. It's the spiritual needs that have to be met. When you're in a connection with a woman and she is the closest thing from her womb, her portal, to the divine, and if her spiritual needs aren't met, her spiritual needs, her being nurtured, even in the fact of if you're as an individual, a person trying to make sure, most likely, that what you're orchestrating, even in the physical, because it's spiritual first, so your intentions are already to make sure she won't be stable, because that reflects her instability within herself spiritually and emotionally and so forth. So I'm bringing something to your awareness here. There are people purposely, there are principalities, there are shit that make sure that our needs wasn't met. Until now, that's what the judgment is here for. This is divine justice at play and judgment. Ooh. Because everyone wants to just assume shit is tangible. You quick to want something from somebody that's offering you some shit. Don't even know. Those who in tune be knowing. Hey, you don't receive everything from everybody, whether it's free, You don't just go out there and get free food. It's so much shit that's been accumulated over time. Like now I know who you are in the shadow. I know who you are. I know what really your intentions are. Even if you showing up like this. Your status, okay. So you purposely wanted to make sure. And it ain't just this. Cause y'all just assume, y'all quick to say, y'all use these terms, these adjectives. Oh, the white man is putting, they did this. Man, I've seen all kind of colors and creeds in certain situations, living situations. This is a spiritual thing. Because just as much as y'all don't know, because y'all don't study or learn or get to know yourself, because it was purposely like that, it's intentionally given to indigenous women to believe that just because what they see with their natural eye, to believe that, this is the people that's doing it to you. But you never think about the Wizard of Oz and motherfuckers behind the scenes who's telling you to believe that. Now they're exposed. Because you'd be surprised at people who look like you, who's behind those people who keep telling you to believe that this is who it is. So, of course, the basic needs, I'm like, it's more to this. Why don't we ever question, well, who's behind this? Who's behind that? Okay. Especially if you have a position and you call yourself a billionaire. Why wouldn't you think, even when people who you gotta look at it piece by piece, even the people who own farms, even the people who call themselves billionaires, even if anything to be true or not, it's the question everything about that to see why the fuck aren't we holding trial, spiritual judgment, court for that? Because that's what's happening behind the scenes. I talk about this physical shit. It's just as much as I'm in tune with this spiritual shit. Because when you in tune with that, you're always going to be 20 steps ahead. And you're always going to realize it's no surprise in what's crumbling, what's collapsing. The abuse of power won't happen no more. That's what's being exposed, is the hand of people who abuse their power spiritually first, that you see play out physically. It's just slowly progressing. And then with that, the mindset of the people collectively, spiritually shifts. The collective conscious shifts into the physical plane. This is why it's been so much of a target on instilling fear. Because when you think about the basic needs and necessities, that's in the root chakra. And when it's unstable, fear resides there. Fear of the unknown, of experiencing something completely different. I would have never been here had I not realized, like, in stabilizing my root chakra, being more stable and secure in addressing my subconscious fears, and also the insecurities around whether I'm stable or not, and then even the illusion around people giving me and casting the illusion of what stability really is and how I'm supposed to obtain it. Because you are the trickster. You are the one trying to tell me, this is how you're going to obtain this house if you go through this, getting this loan and doing this. All of those things, and then you look at the housing market, then you look at the fact of energetically things that are collapsing. Why would I cling and even expect the same shit to happen for me systematically of something that doesn't care for my basic needs or my own stability emotionally, mentally, spiritually? So of course they're going to manipulate and try to offer something on a surface level as if it's stable. But yet, when you look at all the things that comes with it, the taxes, the hidden what do they call it? The hidden terms and agreements. All those things, the manipulation around even the housing system. The seeing the corruption and the dysfunction around keeping women in a loop. To keeping people on the rat race and keep people in a hustle, in a bustle. And I'm just supposed to assume like that's for me? I done went off into a whole it all adds up. When you connect the dots, you start to realize sometimes connecting the dots ain't just physical. When balance is being restored, you start to realize how things were intentionally done. How people were smart, but they wasn't clever. How those spirits and certain things, they were smart, but they wasn't clever. Because there's nothing higher than source. So the abuse of power that's being revealed, it shows even in the housing. Because yes, again, the basic needs of things, I started to realize like, damn, that's real deep, but I know that I'm supposed to do something completely different. I'm supposed to do something completely different that doesn't make sense to nobody. Because if you care about the well-being of humanity, then why do you keep so much from them? Why do you keep so much of the things when it comes to the basic necessities of things on all levels? Because when you think about even the fact of what you didn't get when you were young, and then when you see how it plays out on a governmental level, economic, who gets what, how people I know the game now. Now I'm directing. That's what you got to realize. Now you direct. I peeped that. Oh, okay. Okay. I peeped that now. Okay. Got it. Cool. Got it. This shit like a flower pot. Got it. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. The awareness, how you think your life is supposed to be sped up or move faster or do something. No. The beauty of this is like, I was starting with the basic necessities, but I realized like when I get into the spiritual stuff, it's natural because of the fact of, if you see how, if I could just get our women to start to realize that you naturally hold more of a spiritual connection to source than the man. But it's all connected. And that's why, in videos you hear me saying how a lot of people don't realize, like, depending on who you're with, when a woman is in tune spiritually, and this is how I've come to know this even with my mom telling me stuff about me. I always tell y'all, and this goes back to basic necessities. I always tell y'all that your mother and father, like, were given insight. Your mother especially, the matriarchal. So when you think about behind the scenes about a lot of shit that's orchestrated, divinely orchestrated, or even how things have happened, women are always at the forefront because they're the portal, they're the gateway to all of this. At the same moment, and whether you want to say women or subscribe to that, basically the feminine energy, the archetype. So with that, they have it's very important on how they lead, and what they offer, and what they contribute, and what they, the reciprocity and what they're also giving. Simply because, in their coming home to themselves and realize how much that they were not given and how much of their own basic needs, how much they have abandoned and neglected themselves, it's a part of how they actually offer that to said children, said people, and so forth. And so now the beauty of all of this is now that a lot of things is calling them to rest. A lot of them is calling a lot of significance and calling things to create communities around them, healing, recovering, recalibrating. And that's the beauty of when you think about the communities and the structures that y'all been in, it's the opposite of that. It's to keep you busy. It's to keep you fucking distracted by men. It's to keep you focused on shit other than your basic needs. Especially if you're not aware of this and come from trauma and so forth, and then you have a lot of things stored within your womb and root chakra, and you wonder why your stability in the world who does not care, or the powers that used to be or structures that were in place did not even care to, that their reign of terror was not to prioritize not only your spiritual well-being, your mental or the emotional. They sure as fuck didn't care about your physical well-being. So we are the reflection of that. And like I said, if you are the closest thing to spirit, most of women who are in their distortion, in their the distorted mother, the mother who isn't compassionate for herself, who holds emotional empathy for herself, but holds more of a conviction and anger and resentment and all these things that keep her in balance and to keep her projecting, to keep her more focused on independence rather than her interdependence, her balance between her intuition and discernment rather than seeking validation and acceptance. She has caused her suffering and then blames everybody else. Because when she comes back home, this is the rise of the divine mother, the divine feminine, who take no shit, who knows and protects her spiritual, mental, emotional, physical well-being. Because if she protects that which is sacred, her basic needs, everybody got to fall in place. But let man tell you religiously and other things, oh, you got to do as I say and I got to make this. They don't made you believe that, convince you to think like your protection is going to come through what a man can physically offer you. What the fuck? What about what you spiritually already have innately in your DNA? What about what you already have? Because whatever you offer the man, it's naturally going to enhance everything. So who holds the innate power? The power y'all have of love. Y'all carry the basic foundation. You carry the blueprint. The only way I'm able to share this shit is because it came from a woman. It came from the matriarchal. I carry the same rage. I carry the same blueprint. I'm literally a reflection of that shit, of my mama. When you see my mama, you see how much we look alike and so forth. But at the same moment, it's the things that's unresolved that I can't make her see, but I can remind myself because I had to mother myself, because that's what you teach us to do. If you don't know how to mother yourself, baby, ladies, women, then guess what we're going to learn how to do? We're not going to know how to nurture ourselves. We're not going to know how to manage our emotions. We're not going to know the basics of know how to stabilize our emotions in the heat of the moment. We're going to want to leave because we don't know how to be present, because y'all teach us how to be present because you master emotion. We master logic. So logic is like the air state. You're just going to go. You're just going to think without feeling. That's what has happened. That's what has fucking happened through trauma, through neurotransmitters, through the mind. You react. Or you impulsively do something. And that's why you see the imbalance between when a woman isn't stable emotionally, she impulsively does something without thinking logically, using the balance between the feminine and masculine. And men, depending on what we grew up in, we feel first without balancing the fucking logic. So it both can go hand in hand, whomever is carrying the most masculine and feminine energy, but they still display it in a masculine way, coming from a feminine resonance. So either way, I'm saying this is the rise of the divine mother, divine feminine within us all. Not just women, within us all. The energy of that. Because in realizing that our power has already been here, no one is taking it. That's the illusion they want you to give, because they will make you think like, oh, I can take this from you physically. Bitch, no, you can't. You never did, because guess what? It was always within me spiritually. But they had women believing once you're not in tune, then you're fucking, it's just like throwing your pH off balance. Your balance is off. So guess what? Now you in conflict with yourself. That makes you in conflict with other women, who encourages other women not to be themselves and be authentic, to stand in their power, to know what's valuable. Because we ain't living, where the fuck y'all been? What kind of world we been living in that values emotional stability and values integrity and love for self and gratitude and awareness? Huh? Where? Because imagine that being in your daughters. Then she wouldn't settle for less, because she's more than enough, just as you are. You've always been enough. That's the thing about all this. Everybody wants power. Everybody wants to abuse their power. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to control and manipulate. And that shit really reflects us. I was there. Everybody wants to control. But nobody wants to really stand in their power and their sovereignty and their authenticity. Like I said, y'all literally hold that essence, that connection spiritually, to where in your divine state or in your alignment, you naturally, this is what spiritualists who are in tune, and this is what the corruption has been in the spiritual community amongst other women who use men as cattle to abuse their power. This is their judgment that's coming to them. But the ones that are in alignment, that have been fighting those spiritual warfares to get to where they are now, and realizing like, oh, fuck around and find out. Because a lot of you have been of high ranking and are high ranking. So you had to go what some may call under those spiritual attacks, or through those lessons, or through those blockages and so forth, to realize how powerful you are in your lineage, to what needs to be restored, to actually give the men to be the insight. Because guess what you get? You get dreams, your intuition, you get visions and everything about that man. But you so focused on through your distortion, through your unhealed, through your unhealthy attachment, through not getting your basic needs, or probably through a father wound, that you don't actually want to fucking inform that man of his greatness, of something that you've seen that could prevent his death or transition. That's what I'm doing here. I'm holding y'all accountable. Because what I sit here and say, oh, I'm doing this by myself, I'd be a fool to say that. That's why it's so important for y'all to realize how important your journey is as a woman that becomes in tune. And y'all get fooled by these women out here, spiritualists, and all these motherfuckers calling themselves witches and all this other shit. Boy, they ain't no empress, they ain't no nothing. The divine finna come down on they top two. All of them people in the spiritual community. Why you gonna see them fade to the back? You ain't gonna hear about none of them, because they know. They know who here now. We can see. People see. They know who here now. And they have the opportunity to correct, to balance shit out. Because a lot of them had the power. A lot of them had spiritual gifts to know that they are to encourage you to step into your power, not to abuse it. The fuck? And it's a way of using it to protect yourself and those you care about. A lot of y'all, through y'all fucking distortion and y'all naturally are in tune spiritually, been fucking shit up. Whether you know it unconsciously or not. That's what a lot of y'all gonna find out. Even through my ability to come to who I am, I had to, you want to use the term undergo or go through the same shit, being attacked by women that I knew that was spiritual. People in my family. And the reason I say that, because it goes back to the basic needs. A part of you encouraging that man, nurturing that baby into his adulthood from childhood development. That shit is just as much how you pour into him spiritually, pour into that baby spiritually. You don't just feed him with food. You spiritually feed him. And a lot of y'all in y'all distortion as women and men, you never been fed spiritually. So here's your fucking spiritual food. A lot of y'all abuse y'all power. And you still going through that loop and dysfunctionality like your mother did and blaming everybody. You're abusing your power there right then by still cycling through that same shit. You're abusing your power. And you still abusing it by knowing that you know something, the truth of something, and you still go against it, and then you still withhold information from people. You still withhold shit from people because of your own ego and pride. You're not exempt. I wanted to believe at a time that when I was young and naive with my mom that, it was always the man's fault. And so I started to realize the divine said, I want you to observe and look from people who abuse their power spiritually, who knowing the gifts they have, who manipulate. Manipulation is abuse. Financial abuse. Y'all be looking at shit physical abuse. That's spiritual abuse too. People abuse their power in the spirit. And know the fuck what they doing on the physical too. Y'all be just thinking, you think they gotta do stuff to you physically. People abuse, they are getting judgment right now from abusing their power spiritually. That means if a mother, I tell y'all be getting insight on the path of the men that you meet. And the whole time, you so distorted, you so unhealed, you so attached to the physical shit that the divine gave you insight on that man path. Not like somebody else you met. No, you were supposed to tell him about something. And due to your own emotions and shit, because you're not emotionally stable and secure, and you felt like even if he did nothing to you, you still kept shit from him. You know how many people, mothers do this shit and fathers? Because when you in tune, when you aware, what do you think those people hire spiritualists for? What do you think people behind the scene have people study astrology and all this other shit for? Study the stars and shit. Because those people have insight and connection to other things. Just to keep motherfuckers like you or certain people in a place of believing like there isn't something beyond this shit. Just to keep you in a place of just believing surface shit. All that shit has come to a hedge. All of it. Everybody got to answer to somebody. That's a higher power. The source. And what people did, they felt that they didn't have to answer or they didn't think the universe, they thought they were above universal law. These rules and all this stuff that y'all abide by, everything was implemented. But everything was a spiritual contract agreement first before it actually played out. People had an agreement. That means your mother and father, I'm going to go deeper on the spiritual aspect. They had a spiritual agreement to be who they were for you. They kept stuff away. That's why people will be cut off in these times. You see the split or the separate, that has a lot to do with it. Because in your recovery process, then you're recovering that which it seems that was lost in your lineage. The basic needs ain't just physical. They're spiritual, love. And a lot of you had the opportunity. You think you just supposed to feed that man and or woman or your children physically? What do you think these people been doing behind the scenes? What do you think is behind the food? What do you think is behind a lot of shit? You getting fed spiritually. And a part of the balance being restored is to be able to see what kept people in limbo and imbalance to now be restored. The distorted feminine energy that operated through the masculine distortion or through the wounded masculinity displayed. Y'all, you don't realize like we all were there. Even when you sit there and like, this motherfucker did this to me, and you say something, you do something. Some of y'all got gifts like that. And that shit happened. Some of y'all been sold in your distortion that you will wish something on them before you actually encourage them and wish them fucking well. To actually find the clarity in the shit it is to actually be stable. There was a point in time where there was powers that used to be a certain shit that had the power to get rid of people. Like to do certain shit. But y'all gotta realize a lot of stuff now is that no longer can happen because there is a divine order at play for things that are above people who have tried to play, if y'all want to use the term God, or play in such like a God, let's just say that, or act as if they're a hierarchy over so much shit. No. I tell you, man, people, y'all think that, what I'm saying, just because of what in there not doing something, they still collect karma or they still plant seeds. That's why even in your non-participation still has a ripple effect or shadows people's illusion. That's why a lot of keeping people going, hustle and all that shit, I gotta realize that is still planting seed towards keeping people in a dysfunction and dysregulated fucking nervous system. But in your stillness or learning to be solitude, you build upon your own shit stone by stone. You build your own, whatever you want to call it, business. That's a part of your empire, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Kingdom, queen, whatever you, chieftain, whatever chiefess, whatever the fuck you want to call it. That right there is how you realize that stepping in your power, you naturally create a ripple effect throughout the universe, throughout the world, by showing up for yourself. Because in your showing up, you'll be able to observe to see how other people show up and see how so many people are just not just followers, but don't have the ability to do that, to think for themselves, to do for themselves, which are the basic needs. I feel like I'm going to just leave it there, but I keep telling y'all, women, there's been a collective thing when it comes to the fact of why, if you think that the shit that has been transpired is just sitting around men, in the spiritual sense, that shit is sitting around a lot of covens or a lot of motherfuckers working with certain shit behind the scenes to conjure up shit. Think about being in your family and you call yourself this person a healer or something or whatever the fuck you want to call yourself. You think, like I told y'all before, in that spiritual warfare aspect of me regaining like the upper hand or stepping into my power, I could no longer feed into or be fed off of the dysfunctionality of the people in my family, especially the women. Because they were the main blueprint and the foundation of why the men either progressed, expanded, walked into their purpose and destiny, fulfilled certain shit. Because anything you give her, she multiplies. But naturally, she is the multiplication. She embodies that. So when you think about certain women who don't want to support their husband's hatred towards other people, who don't want to support their other husband's business, but still do it, you think you just giving monetarily and financially. Baby girl, your magic is going into that shit. Your intentions, your everything. Even in his dysfunction, even in his abuse of power that you know that he's doing on a physical plane, you're still encouraging him. Even when you married, that was a spiritual covenant and contract. And everything that he did and brings to the table, you are a part of building upon that shit. Because you actually, even through the fact of not knowing how and this is what a lot of women, that some of y'all so caught up in religion and the ones who really be doing shit behind the scenes spiritually don't want you to know. Of course they want to keep your ass in religion. Of course they want to keep you in believing in these cycles of thinking like you're not more than just a servant of this person, or keeping you in this stagnant state or believing in this psychosis of even so much shit. Why they what? Practice their arts. Why they dabble in and whatever they do. Why they celebrate their nationalities. Why they do shit ritualistic right in front of you. They don't fucking hide it. Because they know that's their basic needs. They're meeting their needs in whatever spirits that they're serving. They're honoring their shit. Telling y'all, bro, and this goes to certain people that transition that y'all call royalty. Ooh, that was very much significant. Very much. That's why a lot of people knew that particular individual, that was very significant to the collapse of not just an empire, but a lot of wicked shit. Y'all be, woo. All them figures that y'all, the Pope know, Trump know, a lot of people know. That's a whole other thing. They know. I gotta bring some humor into this shit. They know. We know. They know. Ben had paper. Ben had land. Ben had inheritance. Ben had, man, woo, boy. Y'all just look at it on the family level, but basic needs has a lot to do with so much shit. As you come into your own individuality, it's going to be exposed on all levels. Inwardly, outwardly, inwardly. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.